Mackenzie Shirilla is in prison as of right now for the alleged murder of Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan. This happened one night when they were on their way home from a high school graduate party, having Dominic in the passenger seat and Davion in the back seat. And she decided to floor it down a road about 100 miles per hour, striking a brick building, and the hit being on the passenger side. Mackenzie ended up surviving this crash, but Dominic and Davion did not survive. Now, what happened inside this car right before the accident, we don't know, but what we do know is how it all went down. We just don't know why. And it seems like Mackenzie might not care so much. So let's get into it. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. This episode contains discussion of sensitive topics that may be distressing for some audiences. Please take care while listening, and if these topics are triggering for you, we encourage you to prioritize your well-being. Welcome to Taste the Tea podcast. I'm Teresa, and in this podcast, we talk about true crime. So if you're interested in true crime, please subscribe, like, comment, and if you want to watch more about true crime, please watch my previous episodes. I recently watched The Crash on Netflix, which is a documentary about Mackenzie Shirilla and Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan. It has to do with this incident that happened in Ohio, in Strongsville, Ohio in 2022. Now, Mackenzie Shirilla, she is the perpetrator, and she was the driver in this car. Davion Flanagan was a victim, and he was the friend of Mackenzie and Dominic. And Dominic Russo was another victim, and he was the boyfriend of Mackenzie. Now, I'm going to get into each person and who they are, just because I feel like it's, it only makes sense to really understand who each person was. Now, Davion at the time was 19 years old. He was born around March 11th, 2003. He graduated from Strongsville High School, just like Mackenzie and Dominic, and we'll get into them as well. But he graduated from Strongsville High School, and he was a football player. He was a running back who inspired to go to college / NFL, but those dreams ended due to a ACL / UCL injury that he had while playing football. But he inspired to be a barber. So once the dreams of him going into the NFL and playing football in college ended, he ended up deciding to want to be a barber, and was going to go to barber school right after high school. And so it was this whole thing. He wanted to build his own barber shop and everything, and it was very sad to know that. Now, he was described as loyal, caring, funny, athletic, kind. He was like just this bubbly person that everybody enjoyed being around with. I'm sorry, I think been mispronouncing Davion's name. If I said Davion, I apologize. But Davion was adopted at age 8 with his sisters Davion and Dahlia by Jamie and Scott Flanagan. So he grew up with his adopted family, and he was just living his life. He was living the high school life, graduating, done with high school, about to go to barber school, and was about to start his career. Now, Dominic, he is also known as Dom. He was 20 years old at the time. He was the oldest out of the 3. He also graduated from Strongsville High School. He loved basketball. He had his own apartment with Mackenzie, which Mackenzie moved in after high school. They were in a 4-year relationship at the time, which they seemed inseparable from the outside point of view. Always hanging out. They're always wanting to be around each other. Wherever Mackenzie goes, Dom goes. Wherever Dom goes, Mackenzie goes. So it was kind of like that type of relationship. I mean, they were really young. They were like in this puppy type of love. So Dom was basically just living his own life. He already had his own apartment. So For him to have his own apartment and live on his own at such a very young age shows a lot in him and shows how hardworking he was. Mackenzie was 17 years old at the time of the crash. She also goes by Kenzie. But she also is a graduate from Strongsville High School. She aspired to be a social media influencer, model, and ended up posting a bunch of like outfits, her lifestyle, and all this stuff on TikTok mostly. So that was her thing. So that's what she liked to do. So when Dom and Mackenzie ended up dating, Mackenzie was 13 years old. Dom was 16. At that time, when people found out like that she was dating someone a lot older, she was a freshman in high school and he was like a junior in high school. A lot of people did not agree with it. Like, oh, you're dating like an older person or an older guy. And like, I don't know if this is smart, but yes, so they were 3 years apart. Like I said, Mackenzie ended up living with Dom around the late 2021, early 2022. For whatever reason, her parents decided to allow her to move in with Dom. I mean, I get that they've been dating for like 4 years, but it's like your daughter is 17 years old. From what they explained in the documentary, the parents were like, well, we understand, that she was really young whenever we allowed her to move in with Dom at 17 years old, but she was very mature enough to, live her own life and live on her own with Dom. But it's like, was she very mature? Because she caused this crash and she was doing a whole bunch of drugs, but we'll get into it. Okay. I'm literally getting ahead of myself. But yeah, so that's kind of how the parents were. Now, I don't really agree with the parents. I do not like the parents. I'm not very fond about them. I just don't I don't know. I just don't think that they're very good parents. I know that, you know, every parent has their own way of wanting to raise their kids or like wanting to teach them their own morals and values or whatever. There's different ways of how to raise your kids, but I don't agree with this one. I do not agree with the way they raised her. She seems very spoiled, very like she's the main character in everybody's story. Like it's like that. And I just don't agree with it. And they just let her be. They let her do whatever she wants. They even let her smoke weed and they know. But we'll talk about that later on. So let's continue on with, Mackenzie and who she is. When I say she's spoiled, she's spoiled. So Dom added a little bit to that. Supposedly Dom would buy her designer things, and Kenzie's parents commented about this and stated that the boy wasn't hurting for money. And I think that helped Mackenzie a little bit because Mackenzie likes things, like, yeah, she's a gold digger. That's what it sounds like. Like, what are you trying to say? You're not painting your daughter very nicely now. But yes, so that was their comment, and that's how they went about it. And supposedly, they were planning to get married. Supposedly, Mackenzie and Dom were planning to get married, and the parents already knew this. Both the parents knew this. But there's a lot of mixed thoughts about her personality. Kind of a little bit what I've talked about before. The people that talk about her the best are obviously her mom and a couple of her friends. Mackenzie's mother, Natalie Shirilla, described her as deeply in love with Dom, that they were always in love, they were always together. They were just a really great couple, which no, they weren't, but whatever. Faith Walsh, I think that's how you say her name, was a childhood friend, and she met her in middle school and described her as fun, loving, and amazing friend and would stick up for her at anyone. Yeah, this person described her as that type, and I guess I can see a little bit of it maybe towards the people that she really mostly cares about, but even then, like, she still disrespects them. And like I said, we'll get into that, but I'm just like commenting about,
I just don't really like this girl. I'm sorry. I said it. I don't like Mackenzie. I think she has a lot of mental issues, personally, in my opinion. Rosie, she met her in high school. She met Mackenzie in high school. They got along pretty well because the way she kind of described it was kind of weird or like funny and cheesy. But basically, she said that they saw each other and Rosie was like, "Oh, you're cute." Kenzie was like, "Oh, you're cute." And then that's how they became friends. Okay. Wow. Did they have a crush on each other or what? Because I don't know how that can be. I mean, it's just a funny way to describe how your friendship started, you know. But that's how they started. And they would do photo shoots together. They both wanted to become models, and yeah, that was their thing. That's what basically they did most of the time. Others would say that she was a bully. She was selfish, she was entitled, and imitated Regina George from Mean Girls. I can see it. I can see it. She gives me that type. She gives me that vibe. I feel like she just picks and chooses who she thinks is worth it enough to be in her friend group. Like, it just seems like that type of person.
I'm pretty and smart, and I get along with everyone, even ugly girls.
And then there's a lot of evidence that showed a pattern of intense abusive behavior towards Dom. So their relationship was not actually rainbows and sunshines. Their relationship was actually very rocky, and she admits this. And the fact that her parents would say, "Oh, the relationship was amazing, they were inseparable," and all this stuff, you're lying to yourself, because there's no way that you have not seen or you did not see what was going on, because your daughter is very controlling, and that was that. Like, I don't understand how you can't just admit that. But they didn't admit it. But Mackenzie did. Mackenzie ended up admitting the fact that their relationship was very rocky and they had a lot of problems. But she says every relationship does, which, valid, yes. But not every relationship has some controlling person that tells them what to do or what they can't do, or, that's toxic. And there's a healthy toxic and there is a toxic that is not good for everyone or not good at all. So that was the case. There were a lot of frequent fights between them, threats, including a prior incident where she stated that she would crash Dom's car with him and her in it on a phone call. So the mom tries to switch this up and say that Dom was the one that was trying to crash the car and was driving, but I don't know. I don't think I believe her so much. I think I believe more the other person. I think it was his brother that stated this situation, that Dom ends up calling him and telling him, "Hey, come get me. We're in the highway. Kenzie is crazy. She is planning to crash the car." And he hears her on the phone, the brother of Dom, stating basically a whole bunch of curse words and being like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna crash his car. You better come get him," or something like that, or "Don't come," or I don't know exactly, but that's basically what happened. And I don't know. I just can't believe that Dom would do that, because it just doesn't seem that Dom was that type of person from what I found. Now I could be wrong. Dom can be or could have been the controlling one, but it just doesn't seem the case. Like, it just seems like Kenzie is the one to be controlling. The day of the crash, it was on July 31st, 2022. It was around 5:30 a.m. and Kenzie was in the driver's seat. Dom was in the passenger seat and Davion was in the back passenger seat. They were leaving a graduation party. It was more so of a small hangout. It wasn't really like a party, but they were watching YouTube videos of something very chill. Bubba, which is a friend of the friend group, which is Rosie's boyfriend, and Rosie is Kenzie's friend, if you guys remember. Hopefully, I'll try to like. So it was something very chill, nothing crazy. They were smoking marijuana. and they had plans of possibly taking shrooms. Supposedly, when Kenzie, Dom, and Davion got to the hangout, it was already around 12:30, 12 a.m. And supposedly they stated that it was too late to take the shrooms. So they just decided to smoke. Kenzie supposedly didn't smoke that night. So Rosie says. But later on, we find in her blood, in the blood test, that there was THC in her blood. So that comes from marijuana, and it shows that she was smoking. So I don't know what Rosie, if she was, I don't know if she was trying to lie or whatever the case, or, I don't know, trying to fit the narrative, or I don't know. But she stated that Kenzie did not smoke, but we later find out that that was not true. Dom and her were supposedly good at this little hangout. They hadn't gotten in an argument. They were fine. There was no altercation between them. Davion was supposedly supposed to go home with Bubba, since they were going to work on Bubba's car the next day. Last minute, he ends up changing his mind, and he tells Bubba that he wants to go home and take a shower and get some sleep a little bit. And so he decides to go home with Kenzie and Davion. At this time, it seems like I think Davion is staying with Kenzie and Dom at their apartment, because Kenzie does state that he ends up staying at their apartment for 2 weeks. I don't know if this was the time. Now, Bubba does recall right before Davion was gonna leave, he gives Bubba a hug and says, "I love you," before leaving. This is something that Bubba found unusual, since it was the first time that they would say, "I love you" in a very long time. So it's not like he's never said "I love you" to him, but it was something that wasn't done often, and it's been a while since the last time that he said "I love you." So the fact that he said "I love you" this night meant a lot to Bubba, but also did make him feel odd afterwards, after the crash and everything, and after everything happened. So they ended up leaving this hangout, or the house, at around approximately 5:30 a.m. Now, there's a few surveillance cameras that catch the car coming down the road. Now, I'm going to describe it, but I'm also going to show it on the screen. So the first camera is at 5:34 a.m. Around 5:34 a.m., it turns into Progressive Drive. So it's a black 2018 Toyota Camry, and it's seen on southbound on Pearl Road. She approaches the right turn into Progressive Drive. So this turn was very slow. It didn't seem like she was, I don't know, out of control or whatever the case may be. It seemed very, very natural. Her blinkers were on. She applies the brakes at this time, and yeah, she makes a very controlled turn. The second camera is about a minute later. So like approximately 5:35 a.m. The camera is positioned further down near the end of Progressive Drive / intersection. The car is now speeding. So as soon as she turns right, she books it. So she starts speeding down this road nearly 100 miles per hour with her headlights on. Then later you see her pass a stop sign, not stop at all, and veers left off the road, crosses the grass, hits a business sign, and jumps a curb and slams directly into the corner of the brick building. This impact was on the passenger side at very high speed. The car is essentially torn apart on that side.
No one's breathing.
No one's breathing.
Bust that window out. Oh my God, dude. Who can hear my voice?
Who's in here?
Driver's car. Radio. Driver. Breathing, unconscious.
When you see this crash, when you see the actual car on the scene, it's so traumatic because the car literally, it's like smushed on the right side, which is the passenger side, and the left side, which is the driver's side, it looks more normal. So I don't know. I don't know how Davion and Dominic were feeling in that moment before the crash, and how I'm getting emotional, but like, what were their last thoughts? Like, did they know this was gonna happen? What was going on in that car for her to want to go 100 miles per hour down the road and not even brake? So that is something that we will talk about later on. But she doesn't brake at all. She books it. She never moves her foot off the accelerator. She just goes on and knows that she's gonna hit this brick wall. And knows she's gonna hit this brick building. Well, at least I think she knew. I don't think that she was unconscious or anything like that. I think she knew what she was doing, in my personal opinion. So the entire sequence from the calm turn to the crash took roughly around 50 to 60 seconds. So it was fast, but not fast. Like, it was like around a minute. If you think about it, a minute seems like a short time, but it can feel so long depending on the situation. Say you're in class and you're sitting there and you just have a minute until, your class is over, and you're just waiting and you're like, oh my God, this minute feels long. Like, when is the bell gonna ring? Like, it's like that. And I don't know if that crash felt fast or did it feel slow for Mackenzie and Dom and Davion. When you're watching the surveillance camera, when you're watching these videos, you can hear honking right before the crash. There's literally like it. I don't remember if it was like a full-on honk or it was like a beeping, like they were like pressing it continuously. I'm not 100% sure, but in that video you can hear that. Around 6:15 to 6:20 a.m., a passerby ends up calling 911 and sees the crash. I listened to the 911 call, and the guy seems very calm. He doesn't go up to the car at all, and he just decides to call 911 and let them know where the car is and what happened.
There's a car that smashed up against the building. I didn't go up to it because I was on my motorcycle. I didn't know if I'd get stuck, but they ran the curb. I can see they smashed the sign and hit the building. The car's crashed.
Mackenzie was removed from her driver's seat, which I think in one of the videos that they show when they're pulling her out or taking her out, she does scream. Now, she did have a few injuries. She had a broken femur, a broken arm. She had 3 broken ribs, a lacerated liver, a lacerated kidney, and other serious organ injuries. She did have a few injuries, and she could have ended her life in this crash. But she surprisingly was the only one to survive. Well, not necessarily surprising, because when you see the car, literally it was just on the passenger side. So I don't know, it just seems like if you were out of control, I feel like, I don't know if it was a coincidence that you hit just the passenger side or you wanted to just hit the passenger side. I don't know what was her intention, but it just doesn't seem to me, it just doesn't seem like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it was not on purpose. And also, what bothers me is the fact that the driver is always the survivor, and That makes me so sad. Usually in car crashes, from what I've seen and from what I've heard, the driver is usually the survivor. And in this case, Mackenzie was the survivor. So she was alive on the scene and she was flown to Metro. Now, Dominic and Davion were both DOA, which means dead on arrival. So they did not have a heartbeat at all. When the investigation started, they immediately obviously turned to Mackenzie because Mackenzie was driving and they found a few things in the car. So they found marijuana in the car and they also found the mushrooms. When they started investigation, they got back the blood toxicology. It indicated that Mackenzie had no alcohol in her system. So this was not a situation where it was a drunk driving situation. But they did find, like I said in the beginning, THC, which is an active chemical contained in marijuana. But she was someone who was not unfamiliar with under the effects of marijuana while driving. So for her in this situation to randomly just get out of control was very unlikely. Like it just didn't, it ruled it out for the investigators. Also, there was no psilocybin in her system, even though 8.1 grams of psilocybin mushrooms were found in her waistband. So she didn't smoke or she didn't take any mushrooms. She didn't have any alcohol. She just had THC in her system, which, like I said, she's driven high before. So, like, what happened in this situation? Or why was she accelerating in this moment? So they thought, okay, it wasn't a party gone wrong. We got the test back and just seems like THC was only in her system. So it either can be a car malfunction, loss of control, or intentional crash. There was a sandal underneath the accelerator pedal. The slipper was just stuck in the floorboard because of the impact. So she was wearing slippers during the crash, and she was in a position where her head was under the dash and she was very much in the car, basically, if that makes sense. But her shoe got stuck under the accelerator pedal. It was just because of the impact. The vehicle was free of defect at the time of the event and showed no evidence of malfunction causing or contributing to the event according to the forensic examination. So now the investigators are like, okay, so it wasn't a car malfunction. She didn't lose control, or in some situation the slipper was not pressing on the gas, or she couldn't, whatever it is, right? So it wasn't a car malfunction, it wasn't lost control, at least of right now. So was it intentional? That's the investigators' next thought. While Mackenzie was at the hospital, detectives went to the hospital to go talk to her. Now, surprisingly, she didn't remember anything after the turn. After she turned right, she doesn't remember nothing, which is odd. The moment right before you accelerated 100 miles per hour. Now, later on in the trial, they bring up this whole scenario. They bring up this whole excuse that's to why she decided to state that. Now, even before they spoke to her, Mackenzie's father ends up telling Mackenzie's mother to tell them that they don't want to speak to them, that they need to speak to their lawyer. Now, if off the bat they're asking for a lawyer, if you didn't do anything wrong, you would just admit, look, this happened. I don't know. Maybe it's just out of safety, because it's a situation where two people are dead and your daughter was driving. So maybe it was just out of safety. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Kenzie. And let's kind of paint a picture of why the investigators are now starting to think that this was intentional, or why others think that this was intentional. So like I said before, she is known as a mean girl. She is largely disliked among high school students, besides her close circle, basically. There was a post of her on TikTok that states, "When everybody knows me, not from popularity, but from my horrible reputation." For her to want to like make that known that her reputation was not good, which I don't know what the reputation is. I don't know if it's that she's a mean person or that she smokes or does drugs or whatever the case may be. That's what she says on this TikTok video. So she kind of admits that she has a horrible reputation. She gives off this persona like she's higher or better than anyone else. This is stated from Davion's sister. There's a lot of cases of her recklessly driving and carelessly driving. She is known as a crazy driver. Basically, she's just very like, she has a lot of like road rage. That is kind of her vibe, what she kind of does all the time. Now, her drug usage. This one's a big one.
I'm not even cool. I'm just one of those girls that can do a lot of drugs and not die.
She is seen in multiple pictures and videos smoking marijuana, smoking out of a bong, taking mushrooms, and lean. Lean is a drink that is commonly made with cough medicine combined with soda or any other drink of, your choice. Now, I didn't know that. I didn't even know what that was. That's when you know I don't do drugs, okay? Her parents talk about her drug usage, and it surprised me what they said. And it surprised a lot of people on social media, especially on TikTok. It's going around. It's going everywhere. But basically, they said that they knew that she was smoking. And this is what her dad says, and I quote, "I knew she smoked dope. I don't have a problem with her smoking dope. If you're gonna take a drug, that's the one I believe you should take. It's better than alcohol. It's better than all the other craps." I don't know why you're making an excuse. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand how a parent could be okay with someone smoking weed very frequently. And then, did you know that your daughter was taking mushrooms? Did you know that your daughter was drinking lean? Did you know that? Because if it's better than the other crap, then why did you let her do all that? Because you have no control of your daughter. Like, your daughter controls, the situations. Have you seen the situations where the daughter or the kids control the parents? The kids are the ones that are parenting the parents. Have you seen the situations? Like, it just blows my mind when I see that. I'm like, I'm sorry, but you cannot be a parent. Because if you're going to be a parent for other people, for your child to be your parent, that's crazy to me. How, why? What the heck? I don't understand. But that's the situation, and that's kind of how it describes her smoking marijuana and all this stuff, and he's okay with it. He's okay with her smoking dope. Whatever. Now, Kenzie and Dom's relationship. Now, I did want to talk about their relationship deeper because there's a lot of information that came out that shows that their relationship was not pretty. Okay, not every relationship, not any relationship. Every relationship has problems, right? Every relationship are gonna have some sort of arguments, but it just depends on how you react. Dom and Kenzie's relationship, they would always break up. It was a thing. It was like they would get back together, they would break up, get back together, they would break up. But it was just very unhealthy.
Last time we broke up. But I forgot.
You broke up with me earlier.
Because you were a little fucking weak bitch.
You broke up with me earlier. You really broke up with me earlier.
This is your last chance to open the door.
There was this incident when she was at the fair. Supposedly this is from one of the friends that, talked about this situation, that talked to the investigators about it. And they were at the fair with, that friend and the friend group and Dom. He was on the phone and Kenzie wanted him to get on a ride. And she obviously sees that he's on the phone. And she yells at him and tells him, "You better get on this ride." And he's like, "I can't right now." And Kenzie doesn't say anything. She gets on the ride, I believe, and basically starts an argument. Then later goes to the group and states that she's going to break up with him. I mean, it proves that they're very young. They're very young. This is young love. Honestly, this is young love. It's very unhealthy most of the time. And you become very jealous, very controlling because I don't know, you're very new to all these emotions and everything. So I believe that was probably the situation, but I also don't think that they should be together. So, yeah, they were just not healthy for each other. Allegedly, this is from what the friend also stated, that Kenzie did voodoo on him. That's why Dom puts up with everything that she does and puts up with all the situation and could never break up with him. Now, I don't know if this is true, but it sounds like she would do something like that. She sounds psycho. She sounds like she would do voodoo and do some sort of ritual to get Dom to stay with her. Because supposedly she was always like, Dom is never going to leave me. Dom is always going to stay with me. And if I ever have to leave Dom, then I can never live with myself. Insinuating that she could never live on this earth if Dom and her are not together, which is insane and not healthy at all. Allegedly, in the beginning of their relationship, Rosie found out that Dom was cheating on Kenzie with another friend in the friend group, which this caused a lot of trust issues between Dom and Kenzie. Now, this led to Kenzie always asking where he was, what he was doing, who he was with, and all of that toxicness. So she's kind of insinuating like, oh, well, she had a reason to act that way. I mean, I feel like everybody has in control of their own life and what they want to do with it. I feel like in a relationship, you have to build together. And if you have to control another person in a relationship, that's not a relationship. That's just toxic. Now, Angelo is Dom's brother. And I talked about this in the beginning, but Angelo spoke to the police because he knew more than anybody else since he lived next to Dom and Mackenzie. He stated that Dom tried to break up with Kenzie multiple times, but Kenzie just did not have it. She did not want to break up with him. She would always she would never leave. Like if he kicks her out of the house, she's never leaving. Supposedly there was one time that Dom calls Kenzie's mom to tell her to come get her daughter because she doesn't want to leave and she's crazy and she doesn't leave me alone because I broke up with her and all this stuff. Now, I don't know why Kenzie's mom didn't bring that up. Why didn't she say that? Why didn't she say the relationship was rocky? Angela also states that the love felt very selfish and restrictive, that she would never let go. 2 weeks before the incident, before the fatal crash, on July 17th, 2022, Mackenzie Shirilla was driving her vehicle on I-71 with Dominic Russo in the passenger seat. Dominic had called his mother, Christine, asking her to pick him up from the highway, citing Mackenzie threatening to crash the car. Witness Christopher Martin went to pick up Dominic, and while on the phone with him, he heard Mackenzie say, "I'm going to crash this car." Christopher Martin further added that he observed Mackenzie strike Dominic as he got out of her car. This incident was reported by Christine, Russo, and Christopher Martin. The investigation continues, and they ended up pulling out a black box from the car. So it's kind of like the black box from the planes. You can pull those out and see what was going on in the car, or like how fast it was going, or if they pressed on the brakes, things like that. So the records from the black box indicates that she didn't apply the brakes at all and was fully in control of the vehicle. So when she was going about 100 miles per hour on that road, she not once pressed on the brakes. She didn't once think to press on the brakes to slow down the car. If you're now on the grass, you don't press on the brake. If you're now seeing that you're about to ram into a brick building, you're not going to press on the brake. That was crazy. That was psychotic right there. If she was actually conscious, which they ruled it as she was like, she knew what she was doing, that's psychotic. If you see that you're about to get to the brick wall, are you not gonna brake? She didn't brake at all. So now, all evidence indicate by investigators that she did this on purpose, leading up to her arrest. So they had all this evidence. The investigators had all this evidence of Mackenzie Shirilla and how she could have possibly done this on purpose. And this evidence proves that. So now they can make an arrest because now they have a very strong appeal and they will arrest her because now they are very confident that she did this on purpose. Now, the day of the arrest, it was on November 4th, 2022. Kenzie was going to physical therapy at this point, so she was already out of the hospital. She was in the hospital for a few months. Now she's in physical therapy. After her appointment, Natalie, which is Kenzie's mom, was driving back home, and Kenzie was in the passenger seat, and they get pulled over.
It was even years ago where Dom would want to break up with her or something, and it wouldn't be like that simple. It'd be like, like from time to time again, it almost like she'd have like issues, like self-esteem issues, like
Kenzie is recording on her phone. You can see her recording on her phone, and she shows a detective approaching her on the passenger side. And he says, "Hi, Kenzie," and he like tries to snatch her phone. And she's like, "Hey, don't touch my phone." He's like, "You're under arrest." And so that's when they arrest her. They pull her out of the car and everything. And yeah, they arrest her and they tell her that they have a warrant for her arrest for aggravated murder ×2. Trial is now set for August 2023. She gets arrested November 4th, 2022. Almost a year later, she has her trial. Mackenzie, on this Netflix documentary, she has this interview with the people of Netflix. She explains her side. Now, when she sits on this chair, everybody's making fun of her. The first thing you notice is this big ass freaking chupon on her head. A chupon is like a freaking, like the baby thing. But you see this big ass bun on her head that just doesn't make sense. And when she sits down so dramatic and like, I don't know, it was just like really just dumb the way she sat. She just sat like she was like all that in a bag of chips. Now, she states that she never told her side of the story and she wants to state the truth. She knows herself and knows she is not a monster. She says that her and Dom would have probably been married by now if he was still alive, because of the relationship and everything was good and all this stuff. But she supposedly states that Dom was so protective and loving over her. And she says that she wanted to heal him and he wanted to heal her. And states that the relationship was rocky, but it was good and it was young love. So she's kind of, because of the situation, when she is taken to trial, they kind of put it as if she was trying to murder her boyfriend and commit suicide at the same time. So it was like a murder-suicide type of thing. Davion was just there. And it just so happened for him to be in the car, which is sad basically insinuating that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She also states that whenever they would argue, she would get sad because he didn't have good communication skills, supposedly is what she said. And they would end up cool later. So it's just a lot of things. And then she does state that Davion was more Dom's friend and went to live with them for a week or two, the summer of 2022. So I don't know if he was living with them when the crash happened, because he said he wanted to go home. I don't know if he was going to go home after they were going to head to Dom's. I don't know the whole situation, but that's what she states in her interview. She supposedly grew close to Davion, and he was full of life and was a good person. Whenever she would say that, or whenever she talked about them, it would just make me so sad, because it's like, I don't know. It makes me go back and forth. Like, do I believe her? Do I not believe her? Like, there's a lot of situations where I'm like, maybe, okay, this is my thought process. Like, maybe she was like very angry and she wanted to scare Dom. Like, for some reason she was getting an argument with Dom and she wanted to scare him, and he like maybe didn't believe that she would do it, and then she's like, I'll do it, like I will crash your car with you and me in it and all this stuff. And Davion was just probably in the middle of it, and she didn't think it was going to go that far. She probably didn't have the thought, or probably thought that they would just get injured and just scare Dom, and then she would now be in control. But it's like, for you to ram a car to a brick wall, like, do you not know the consequences that you're about to get into? Do you not know that this is very, very severe? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. She states that all she remembers that night was that it was around 5 in the morning and they were headed to Dom's house, and remembers turning on the street, then waking up in the hospital, and her whole life shattered. So, like I said, that's the only thing she remembers. She just remembers turning and getting onto that street, and doesn't remember anything after that. Of course, because that's the time when she starts accelerating and does not brake at all. She states, and I quote, "I'm not saying I'm innocent. I am a driver of a tragedy, but I'm not a murderer." Now, the trial starts from August 7th to August 10th, and then on the 14th is when they came up with the verdict. So this whole trial is called a bench trial. So a bench trial means that in Ohio, defendants have a choice whether they want a jury or no jury. So a bench trial is basically you approach just a judge. There is no jury involved or no jury in the trial, and you are just presenting your evidence or your defense to the judge. Now, the judge, which is crazy, this kind of like blew my mind. The judge's name was Nancy Margaret Russo, which she had no relations to Dominic Russo. Now, the prosecution's case during this trial argued that Mackenzie intentionally crashed the car into the building as a murder-suicide during a toxic relationship with Dom. So they included in their evidence surveillance video showing a normal turn followed by a sudden acceleration to approximately 100 miles per hour with no braking. A black box data confirming 100% throttle and no brake. Approximately 93,000 text messages and prior incidents showing relationship volatility and threats, including a recent incident where she allegedly threatened to wreck the car. Like we talked about that other situation where, he was in the passenger seat, she was driving, and she was threatening to crash the car with him and her in it 2 weeks before the actual fatal accident. Toxicology of THC in her system and nothing else. And the testimony from Dom's family and friends about her controlling behavior. Now, the defendant's case claimed not intentional, possibly caused by a medical blackout, which is POTS, POTS is a disorder of autonomic nervous system that controls automatic functions like heart rate, blood pressure, digestions, and etc. You could pass out if you have POTS in random moments. They're stating that she possibly could have passed out or blacked out in this moment of before the crash. They argued evidence was circumstantial and that Kenzie had no memory of the event, and Kenzie did not testify during this trial. Kenzie's parents ends up claiming that she was diagnosed with PODS like around 2017. Now they argued back and forth. Okay, if you found out that your daughter was diagnosed with PODS, why would you allow her to get her license? If she is not able to drive, she randomly blacks out, why would you allow her to get her license? So the mom didn't have no clue how to answer this. She explains that the blackout or episode started while driving, which could explain the crash and the complete lack of memory afterwards. Now, the judge was not convinced by the PODS explanation. She thought that that was just not true. There was no strong medical expert that testified or any records that presented that she had PODS. Now, the day of the verdict, which was August 14th, the judge, Russo, found Shirilla guilty on all counts. So she is guilty for the murders of both Dominic and Davion. This is what the judge stated in the trial. The video clearly shows purpose and intent of the defendant. She chose a course of death and destruction that day.
The video clearly shows purpose and intent of the defendant. She chose a course of death and destruction that day. Exhibit 802 crystallizes the identity decision-making of the defendant. She morphs from a responsible driver to literal hell on wheels as she makes her way down the street.
To hear that while you're in trial, listening to that moment, and they're about to say that you're guilty for the murders of these two people, your heart rate must be real high. Yeah, she was scared. Then the sentencing ended up being on August 21st, 2023. She was sentenced on count 1, murder of Dom, 15 years to life, and on count 2, murder of Davion, 15 years to life, to serve concurrent to each other with credit for time served. Her first parole eligibility hearing is on September 2037. That sounds like a long way to go. So she has to make at least 15 years in prison in order to get another hearing to possibly get parole. Obviously, there was a lot of mixed emotions between. Obviously, there was a lot of mixed emotions with after this trial. There was people that were like, free Mackenzie, and there was other people that were like, no, she needs to stay in prison and rot in hell. That's what people would state. I wouldn't see that. Okay, but it looks like in prison she seems chill. She seems like she's living a normal life. She doesn't seem like she's suffering. She supposedly has a phone or like some sort of device where she could take pictures and post it. Like, I'm not 100% sure why, but she has it, and she has a lot of friends, and she's living her life. Like, she's basically becoming very popular in prison, and it just seems like she just still cares about how she looks, and it gives that vibe as in like, I'm better than everybody. Like, she still is giving that vibe in prison. Now, there was supposedly this girl in prison with her at that time. She's already out of prison, but supposedly she was with her in prison. I think she got into prison in 2023, and Mackenzie got into prison or 2024. I'm not 100% sure. But I watched this video on TikTok of this girl talking about this situation, and she says that she was in prison with Kenzie. And she stated that she didn't have any sentimental feelings towards what happened to Dominic and Davion.
She thrived for fame even while I was in prison with her. She thought that she was going to be the princess of the prison. And she also went on there thinking that it was going to help her with another appeal that's going to get denied. We understand that, correct? Let me tell you something. Mackenzie Shirilla did not walk around that prison yard with an ounce of remorse. Mackenzie Shirilla did not walk around that prison yard thinking about those lost loved ones that she claimed to think about every single day. Mackenzie Shirilla walked around prison thinking, how is she going to get in with the cool kids?
That's how this girl describes it. That was allegedly in prison with Kenzie. There was also calls with her mom, Kenzie and her mom, that seemed like they were more excited about being famous, or at least Kenzie was more excited about being famous, and the story reaching all over the world. Like, they were talking about how it got to London.
It was published in England.
What?
Yes.
It's world news?
I think the Daily Mail just publishes it in all their publications. So yeah, the UK.
It's on the Daily Mail?
In UK.
Maybe Kim Kardashian will reach out herself.
That's what I'm saying. I'm hoping.
It just doesn't seem like, you know, you're really thinking about the other people, the victims. Even in trial, the judge confronts the mom and was like, you're talking too much about your daughter. You're not even talking about the victims. So she's like, okay, well, I mean, yes, obviously I do care about them, whatever. But it's like, for the judge to say that to you, you already lost, girl. You're done for. So they just seemed like they were like, I don't know, they were seeming like they were just excited about that. There are other phone calls that actually you hear Kenzie speaking another language. Now, supposedly this language is like gibberish in a way. So it's still English, but you're speaking like really fast. So this language is called the Carney language. So Kenzie and her mom speak Carney through the phone a lot.
Can I say something to her? Yes. 기자니까 시제 미제 기자니까 이상 기자미주 치지 시제 reasons usually like chooses T seconds I who feel these seasons is a reason you can. Yeah, like can I just like take my whole license?
A lot of people have like translated, and supposedly Carney is not hard to learn, but it's just it sounds like a lot of gibberish, but it's just a whole bunch of like phrases really fast, and yeah, it's just weird. But yes, they're talking basically in code. Now, for them to want to do that, it just seems odd. Like, what are you trying to hide? So let's go back to how she wants to be famous. When she was in the hospital, I didn't talk about this moment, but when she was in the hospital, this brand reached out to Kenzie asking for the photo that she posted and how they wanted to work with her and all this stuff. She messages this brand and states that she had been contacting them and been wanting to work with them, and that for sure they would want to, or she would want to work with them, and they could be in contact or whatever. This was 2 days after the crash. Now, why are you thinking about this 2 days after? Why aren't you thinking about like your boyfriend and your friend is no longer alive? You're thinking about a brand deal? Like, what? And at the very end of the Netflix series, or the Netflix documentary, Kenzie's mom says that incident, how Kenzie was trying to crash Dom's car, or crash the car with Dom, was supposedly, the mom has evidence of messages of Dom actually wanting to crash the car, not Kenzie wanting to crash the car. Now, I don't know how much of that is true. Like, I kind of mentioned this before, but if the fact that you have two other people that are stating that it was Kenzie wanting to crash the car, and all you have is text messages of the saying that you're gonna, or that Dom wants to crash a car, like, I don't know. I don't know who to believe. It's hard. It's hard in this situation. I don't know if the mom was just. I didn't see the messages. She had like a paper. She supposedly like printed it out or whatever, but she was reading it from there. And it says that Dom is trying to crash the car or something like that. And that's not how Dom's family members, how their story played out. That's basically the whole story of Kenzie and how this all came about. And if she's going to be staying in prison, there's a possibility that she might stay in prison for life. So, I mean, girl, you should have known your consequences. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, but I don't know if I could believe her very much. I think that this situation, like I said before, was a situation of she wanted to put fear into her boyfriend and she threatened him, and maybe he didn't think that she would do it, and so she did it and didn't think about the consequences, you know? That's kind of how I feel the situation happened. We would never know what happened in that car. Like, never. Because the people that would actually tell the truth are no longer here. So all we can do is just go about the evidence and what type of person that she was before the crash or in general. And yeah, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know what other topics you want me to talk about. And yeah, let me know what your thoughts on Mackenzie, and if you think she's innocent or if you think that she should stay in prison. That's all for this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.